This week, South Carolina smackdown.
The Democrats battle in South Carolina.
Despite being double-teamed by Bill and Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama left South Carolina last night with a landslide win.
Didn't just win in South Carolina, he swamped Senator Clinton in what turned out to be a rout.
It was a major victory for Obama and a major rebuke for the Clintons. I mean, particularly President Clinton. He somehow not only drove more African-American support to Obama, but more importantly, he somehow drove white voters to John Edwards.
Jim Clyburn, Byron, the congressman from South Carolina, after the vote came in last night, was reflecting on what had happened.
I'm not surprised at that at all, because I really believe that in the last 48 hours, the voters kind of recoiled.
Edwards got half the white voters who decided in the last 3 days. Those were Hillary voters, I think, recoiling from what they learned this week.
They kind of decided to reject the racial animus that seemed to be developing, and I'm so pleased.
This was among voters who decided in the final 3 days, and this is the point at which the attacks by the Clintons against Obama were at their height. Half of the voters who decided in the final 3 days went for Obama, 27% went for Edwards, and just 21%, 1 in 5, went for Clinton.
We looked at a race that looked like it was 10 or 12 points. We ended up with a race that was 28 points, or 27. And something happened there. And I think that the alienation of the African-American community in South Carolina by the behavior of the Clintons in that state will carry over into other states. And I'm not at all sure that white voters were much impressed with it either.
Well, it was astonishing, the spectacle of seeing a so-called first black president trying to destroy a would-be first black president.
Senator, let's talk about your husband, the former president. He stirred up a lot of controversy down there. Some people said he was out of control. Some people said he was doing exactly what you wanted him to do, and that is be the attack dog.
Bill Clinton wasn't behaving like a former president. He was behaving like a running mate.
Some say he seems more like a vice presidential hatchet man than he does like a former president.
He just became a political operative. He was meant to be a statesman.
Will he continue in the same aggressive way, or is this going to change?
Oh, Bob, you know, my husband has such a great commitment to me and to my campaign. He is going to continue to be with me and support me and speak out for me, and I'm very grateful for that.
They need to diminish Bill Clinton's role. It's been a disaster for Hillary.
He is committed to bringing our country together. He has worked across all the lines that divide us.
And not just on the race issue. It just diminishes her. It's ridiculous to have your husband out there being as prominent as you are when you're running for president of the United States.
What he is doing for me is obviously out of a sense of deep commitment to me personally, but also based on his experience as president.
Especially inappropriate when he's an ex-president, sort of demeaning himself, if he could demean himself, but in any case, demeaning the office of the ex-presidency. He hurt her chances in South Carolina.
I think it's hurt his wife and it's hurt him.
What Bill Clinton's been doing is weakening Hillary Clinton in a general election if she gets the nomination. You know, the most striking thing about last night is who's the first Clinton that America heard from last night? It was Bill, not Hillary.
Yeah,
how
what was he saying?
Weird was that, as far as sort of, it really just reinforced this idea that it is Billary. That is the candidate.
Phil Galey, who's the editorial page editor of the St. Petersburg Times, said watching Clinton in South Carolina was like watching a mad dog slobber. It was about him. And you know, as The Onion said, you know, the Onion headline was, "Screw it, I'm running for president," by Bill Clinton.
They have to, I guess, tone him down.
I think he will have to step aside or he will hurt her a week from now.
I think they have to use him strategically, to put him perhaps in California where there's a 3-hour time difference, and perhaps by the news hit the East Coast, everyone is, you know, in bed.
Has he gotten a little carried away from time to time?
Well, I think it's human nature, Bob. I think that, you know, the spouses of all three of us have, you know, been passionate and vigorous defenders of each of us and, you know, maybe got a little carried away. But, you know, that comes with a hard-fought election. It also comes with sleep deprivation.
I don't think you can overstate the amount of anger created in Democrats by Bill Clinton's tactics.
I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath. We need to be focusing on what's important in the lives of Americans.
In your victory speech as well, you pretty directly said you wanted to move beyond the Clinton brand of politics without saying the Clintons by name.
We're up against decades of bitter partisanship that cause politicians to demonize their opponents instead of coming together.
He suggested that you and your husband are examples of the kind of partisanship That has to stop.
Well, of course, I believe very strongly in finding common ground. That's what I've done in the Senate. But I also believe in standing our ground against some of the very poorly thought out and ill-conceived policies and ideas that we've had to fight against for the last 15 years.
I think he was not talking about arguing with Republicans. He was talking about the attacks that you had launched on him during the campaign.
Well, that's not how I heard it, Bob.
You're not even allowed to say that a Republican had an idea, even if it's one you never agreed with. That's the kind of politics that is bad for our party. It is bad for our country.
But if that were the case, you know, we all have to compare and contrast our records. That's legitimate.
I do think that there is a certain brand of politics that we've become accustomed to, that all of us have become complicit in, where we basically think anything is fair game.
The idea that somehow someone's record, someone's words are off limits, I've never seen that in American politics to be, you know, reflective of my experience.
There are not two people who are better at street fighting politics than Bill and Hillary Clinton. And I've been telling people a long time, don't underestimate the scrappiness with which they'll approach this race. They'll do what they think it will require in order to win.
In this case, I just think it raised the deja vu of the Clintons will drag anyone down to their own level and trash anyone to make up for what is missing in them or what they have done wrong.
I think that in the 90s we got caught up in a slash and burn politics that the American people are weary of.
Congressman Clyburn, who, as you know, is a very influential African-American congressman in South Carolina, he said that he hoped the results in South Carolina could change the tenor of the rest of this campaign. Do you agree with him, or do you think he has a point there?
Oh, absolutely, Bob. And, you know, I've been calling for that for quite some time. My husband and I have spent our entire adult lives, even really before we were adults, you know, looking for ways to heal divides, bring people together, repair the breach, as the scripture says.
Congressman Clyburn had said earlier in the day that Bill Clinton had been using, in effect, code words that really made black Americans nervous.
That's just debate too. Jesse Jackson won South Carolina twice, in '84 and '88. And he ran a good campaign, and Senator Obama's run a good campaign here. He's run a good campaign everywhere.
The Clintons have been trying to make the point that no, he's just like Jesse Jackson. You know, he's a black candidate, not a candidate who happens to be black.
Bill Clinton made that point that Jesse Jackson had won South Carolina.
And other primaries, and didn't go on to, he didn't have to say this, didn't go on to be the nominee.
Comparing Obama to Jesse Jackson's two wins, totally unfair comparison. The comparison is completely inadequate. It's an attempt to make Obama look like just the black candidate.
What is the propriety, the appropriateness of that comment? That is a racial comment. You get to dismiss his victory because Jesse Jackson, 20 years before, a man with whom Obama has no particular connection and whom he doesn't claim to be carrying on the heritage of, won the state.
It's racial code language, and I say that, you know, almost personally, it hurts me that the Clintons have decided to do this.
Hillary starts with comparing him to Martin Luther King, who can't get something done, and then Bill finishes with comparing him to Jesse Jackson, who couldn't get elected. So it wasn't pretty.